Okay, so my first question to you all is when you were invited to participate in toiisrongoaa, the exhibition, what made you say yes?
Well, I suppose personally for me, the provocation came from Marg about this idea of toiisrongoaa, and a lot of the mahi that I'm involved in is to do with our whenua here in Kirikiriroa on behalf of our hapu and our iwi, Ngāti Koroki Kahukura, Ngāti Mahanga, Ngāti Wairere, Ngāti Haua, Taminupō, and the many other hapu throughout this area, to open up the box of what cultural symbolism is and what cultural symbolism can be. And in that sits the healing of the land. And so some of these pieces that I'm involved in is about cultural expression, but also about rongoā, providing some type of essence that acknowledges the whenua that heals the land, and acknowledges them first, rangi and papa and all of the other tua Māori that are playing in between. And then us, our tupuna and all of those elements there, we dance around them. So for me, the provocation of being involved in that resonated really well. And we had some works that I presented that, probably in a more personal touch in hohotarongo. And then this one here is more relevant to the kaupapa that I've just talked about with the land. So kia ora.
Kia ora, Maree, for that question. I guess firstly, when you think of Margie, she's not a person you say no to. But when I say that, it's because when you're in her arms, you know that you're safe. You know that her kaupapa's right and she's doing things with her ngākau and her heart, and she'll ensure that everything happens and you'll get to the end and all the I's will be dotted and you'll be awhi'd along. Sometimes we need a little bit of a awhi. But when I reflect about the kaupapa toiisrongoā, for us as artists, we understand the intrinsic value of toi and creativity for our wellness. And I reflect back to when I was young and I left school and my grandmother said to me, "Oh, don't do art. There's no money in art. You'll just be poor and sad." And so I did no art for about 7 years, and it felt like there was a hole in my heart and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I was searching for who I am and searching for something to fill. And it wasn't until I went to an exhibition in Napier, actually, and I was walking around these artworks, and they were quite expressive, nothing kind of tangibly that you could see, but I could feel the wairu in them, and I realised that's what's missing, I just needed to do that. And then when my pepe was born, actually, and I wanted her to follow her dreams and all that sort of stuff, I realised that I wasn't doing it myself, so I needed to be an example, not just tell her she can follow her dreams, but actually do it. And so have started that journey then, and she's now 22. And it's been a wonderful journey. And actually every day is amazing and beautiful and colourful and bright, and I get to hang out with these awesome people and have cool conversations, and wellness is abound, and it's beautiful to be able to share that in this exhibition, toiisrongoā, because it so is. And when you go up there, you can just feel it in every corner. So tēnā koutou.
Kia ora koutou, and thank you, Maree, for the question. Why did we tautoko this kaupapa? Because we live it, we believe it, we know it, we feel it, and any chance for us to work with our people is one that we welcome. Reflecting on what it means to us, you go.
I think also with us doing our mahi, it came at a time where we wanted to highlight especially Punana Pōhewa, being in the Dream Sanctuary, and highlighting why we wear masks and what happens to us when we wear a mask, and also addressing our mental health and mental health for men as well, where we don't get to talk and really address those situations, and being part of a group of we're part of a group called Mentor Health, where we address the suicide rates in trades, because at the moment that is a really big issue. So just all those issues that are happening all over the country, and that's one of the reasons why we felt that Punana Pōhewa was really important, and really important to share amongst our people. So putting on the mask. Everyone puts on a mask, not only the COVID mask, but, what happens to us in that space. So that was the kōrero. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Thanks to Maggie and Maree for this opening up the space. In terms of rongoā, I contextualise my practice in terms of two spaces, much like the marae. One part of my practice is like the marae ātea, te ātea tūmataunga, where I do really highly political works, and I take on an alias called Ngāpuhi Taniwha, and I make artworks about deconstructing Māori and reconfiguring logos, painting Don Brash as a two-faced monster. So I have that space, which is essential to my practice. But my painting practice in there is like walking inside the whare, te whare o rongo. So those two works in there in terms of rongoā about Hirini Melbourne. So 2 decades ago, used to bug Hirini Melbourne, travel over here and see him for wānanga. And it was real nice to see Tonga Pūra as an essential part of the way we live. And so when the opportunity came up to make some works, my painting practices are from the space of rongo, can't be touched by the Western art world, can't be manipulated. It's a free-flowing source of power. So that's how I see that painting practice. And kia ora.
Tēnā tātou, tautoko ana ngā mihi, kua mihi a ngā kōrero, kua kōrero hia. Much like Regan, can't say no to this one. Engari he mana wahine, he wahine mana nui, aroha nui ki tōna iwi, ki te ao Māori, ki tōna ao Fiji. And I was already in the space of my toi as a rongoā. And so when Margie said, want to come on this journey with me? I was like, yes, loving the wānanga with like-minded people. So we were at Whenua Ukaipo in Wellington 2 years ago, Hohou Te Rongo last year, ki te whare wānanga Waikato, and at the time I was a kaimahi at whare wānanga, and so all of this, the māwiwi nui o te ao, I could see the taumaha on the students. And so what I did in the time of Hohou Te Rongo is any of the tauira that came to me with lots of nawe and taumaha, I would send them to our exhibition, and they would just sit in the space. And then afterwards, wow, I feel way better than what they did when they came in. So coming to toi hei rongoā, a whakāturanga motuhake, with toi, kai toi Māori, e eke ana i tēnei waka kotahi. Sorry, my English isn't great at the moment, but to be collaborating with like-minded ao Māori, reo Māori, tikanga Māori, when we are advocating for our people, it's only going to benefit us in the end. Mea tātou uri whakatupu. So, thank you, Maggie, for the invite.
Kia ora koutou. Yes. Me and Maggie had been talking about some things before. I was sort of looking at the connections between Māori creative practices and Māori cultural practices to do with healing from like trauma and grief. And so when Margie asked me to be part of this exhibition, it was like, yep, that should fit in there nicely. And also great opportunity to work alongside this group collectively. So kia ora Maree and Margie. And Waimahi.
And Waimahi. Kia ora koutou. Yes, I got the phone call as well from Margaret Aull, and we've worked together for quite a few years now, and so I feel comfortable working alongside my mate and everyone here. I think when the kaupapa was raised by her, I'm a painter, so I work. I paint about health anyway in our community. Well, you know, I start with myself, my immediate family, hapu iwi, and I talk about those things in health that and what ails us, and it's quite heavy, and to talk about those things on my own, but in this forum, we talk about it together. So I was quite into that. So I took a deep dive into looking at our medicines and that we take. Yeah. And I'll expand on that further later. Kia ora.
I think my stomach wants to talk because it was like... Kia ora. Kia ora te whānau. So it was the beginning of COVID, and as an introvert, I was in love. And I was renovating my sitting room. I was doing night photography. I was painting. I'm not a painter. And I was like, this is the best. And Margie rang me up and she said, what are you doing? And I said, I've just spent an hour looking at the Mara and listening to the Pīwaiwaka. And I had a reflection on like, I wonder what life would have been like, you know, back in ngā wā o mua, you know. And I noticed, you know, that was the cool thing about COVID, was that it was like a levelling, because we think we're the bomb because we can go to space and we can do this and do that. And then all it took was a little minuscule microbe that stopped the world. And then you saw animals coming down from the maunga and, you know, all over the world. I think there was fish in Venice. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And so I live in Otara in Auckland, and as I was sitting one day during COVID, a kereru flew over. You never see kereru in Otara. And so for a moment in time, it took us back to what would have been. And for me, te whare tapawha is very important. We've been open. I suffer from depression. I've had, you know, in my teens and as a adult. And for me, my toi has been my rongoā. When my dad passed away, I had toi. Unfortunately, people in my whānau, they had substances or they had violence and alcohol. So for me as an artist, if I can give other people those keys, because you don't have to be able to draw to be an artist. That's the first thing I usually hear, I can't draw, I'm not an artist. No, that's only one minuscule part of being an artist. So it's about finding balance and this, putting this all on, having all our wānanga, and even just, you think we're laughing and catching up, that's rongoā. That's rongoā. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Oh, I saw korimako. Korimako, the bird, like, and you never see that in Matapauri. Yeah, those sort of tohu were loud and strong. Yeah. Kia ora. I got a phone call too, and I jumped at it, my practice has been around becoming more whole and not separating parts of me over here and parts of me over here. So that's the journey that I'm on at the moment. So my mahi toi has always been in Te Ao Māori and goes back to quite a few people here in the room, and then others in the room out there as well, probably too, in different times. So I don't want to separate that from the other interests that I have, deeper internal things that are going on. So, you know, I acknowledge the butterflies and all that sort of thing. You know, they're always there when you have to speak in front of people. And so even just that is, you know, a rongoā too, to be fully aware of the inner and the outer. So yeah, my kaupapa is to be whole. Yeah, not separated, not divided. And that's a real challenge. A real challenge these days.
Kia ora.
Do you want this back now?
I've got my own one. I wanted to pick up on something that you started there, Leilani, and some of the others of you have just touched on too. From your own point of view, how do you think your creative practice can help others?
You answer first. Okay. Her butterflies are rumbling. So they need time to settle. What was the last part of that again?
How does your creative practice help others?
Oh, okay. One of the last times I really enjoyed doing uku. Oh, actually, no, there's a few times now, thinking of people in the room. But I had a really cool experience in the classroom with, I can't remember how old they were. They would have been like 8, 9. And again, as I said, you know, I want to open the door, and I have to acknowledge Manos Nathan as somebody who spoke to us often about being a conduit. Mm-hmm. So we become the conduit for perhaps things that are greater than us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in the classroom, I just wanted to share, you know, somebody else mentioned it here, so you unblock plugs that have been blocked up by whatever, and to free up the idea about what uku is, and what you can do with it.
Okay. How does my creative practice help others? Well, I knew that it helped me, and then I worked at Papakura Art Gallery for about 5 years, and we had workshops with, you know, kohanga reo, visually impaired, mental health, the whole gamut. And I noticed that art was the fastest way to connect with people, of all ethnicities, of all ages, of all aptitudes. And my practice fills me up, and then as an educator, I send it back out. And I've dealt with a lot of students that have had negative experiences with art teachers, where teachers have said, oh, no, that's ugly, or that's not the right way. And I like to think that art is one of the last bastions of true freedom and creativity. You know, we do know there's borders and boundaries, but once you know the rules, you're free to break them. So for me, having those connections with people and seeing them spark and go, I can do this too, is awesome. And you see growth right then and there.
I think for me, my work is a dialogue directly with you. So I'm talking to you through these artworks. You know, I'm talking to the DHBs, you know, the healthcare providers, and saying, you know, how are you framing the language of these medicines to our people? And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing with my work. Kia ora.
What was the question again?
How does your creative practice help others?
Oh, yep. I am a tangapuro practitioner. My everyday mahi is with Hapu Wānanga ki Tainui. We reclaim cultural, we have a cultural reclamation of mātauranga Māori through Wānanga. In that, I have a part where I talk about taonga pūoro, but I use my birth story to to use the kōrero and the mātauranga Māori to then feed to our people. Yes, toi is rongoā, but reclaiming who you are is rongoā in that. And I think what we all do here today is a part of that process. We have an intimate connection with our atua. We are descendants of our atua. We just need to remember. And mā te maumahara, ka ora anō tātou, te iwi Māori. Yeah, does that answer you? Yep, cool.
Kia ora. I can answer this one too. So when I think about my creative practice, and it leads a lot to some of the messaging last night about the exhibition, is that we're not, as Māori, we're not static beings. And so once we understand that we can draw, paint, laugh, kaihaka, whakatangi pūoro, we can do a lot of things. It's what I think the core messaging is that we get a bit romantic about what the idea of toi is and rongoā is. And so the messaging to be put forward is just simply a statement that toi is rongoā. It's not a form, it is. Toi, at the crux of it, the knuckle of it, is knowledge. And so when I see my peers, and it's not limited to who you see on here, there's so many of us doing what we do in our communities and with our people across the motu. But when I think of my peers here, that's what I could see. And that's what, as a curator, or when you cultivating idea, is to reach out to the people. If you don't have the tools, you've got your community, you've got your whānui to be able to touch base with. And so in particular with, I think the way that my creative practices helps others is I'm very driven to clear the path. Just clear the path. If you can, then do it. Not to say that everyone has to go out there, and get a machete out and clear the path and get guarded. But what I'm saying is if you're in places where you can do that and bring your people with you, do it. And I think for me, and whether I'm painting or trying to create opportunities, I think when it's kaupapa Māori, you're driven to always do things, you're aspiring for the benefit of your people. And if your people are good, you're on the right path. So I'm just really grateful that in this particular instance, that my creative process has helped bring a show forward and a message forward for our community to further stretch their thinking and understanding about what toi is for them. What is their knowledge base? How can they use that knowledge, that tool, for well-being?
Damn. How does a creative practice influence people? I think inspiration is really important to inspire people to rethink what they're looking at. Like, I just did 15 years teaching at Massey, and the real kaupapa there was critical thinking, is to look at really what the kaupapa is first, and that's, I suppose, where my own work derives from. In terms of other work I'm doing, I'm just thinking about how my creative practice has recently influenced people. Is I made an artwork about co-governance, and it's basically an image of David Seymour shaking the hand of David Seymour. And so it's two David Seymours shaking each other's hand. And basically I just called it co-governance. And I just got so many people going, that's it, bro. That's it. And it's just to inspire people to rethink the culture and re-look at the culture and try and provide art as a mirror. Yeah.
Doing our crochet workshops today, one young fella, stood out for me, and he was autistic, but he really wanted to do a pom-pom, so I helped him make a pom-pom, and just to see a smile on his face, and that was so awesome, and he'd go around and see it, in the fluoro light, it shines up, and I think for us in our practice, we cover so many of our people, it's all across the board, and this is also a way for us to not only connect now, but connect to our past, and also to connect to our future as well. So through crochet. So, yeah. Kia ora.
How does our mahi influence others? Help others. It's like Leigh said about the COVID and how wonderful that was to take that time. The mahi that we do is has joined us and our wairua and brought us together, and in that has brought so much healing. And then through that to our children, we work with our children in our practice, and then through to our wider whānau, and just in terms of everyone's mahi here, and how I feel when I see up there, when I've not seen but mostly felt. I think that's how all of our mahi helps others and our people, is that it's a deep resonance, it's a deep vibration that we feel, and we were really fortunate enough to have some kuia come through our studio the other day, and two of them at the end said, we could feel the wairua in your pieces, and and Rudi and I just like, that's everything for us, that it's because we are so led by our heart, by our intuition, and I know that too, in each of our to be creative and to express that truth, it's our truth, and it's the most authentic place that we can be, and in that space too, we're untouchable. It's such a powerful place when you're in that space of true creativity within yourself, and I know that that's the power, or that's how it helps our people. People see it, they feel it, and then it inspires them to think, maybe I can do the same in whatever way, and then through the colourways that we specifically use, which is only brights, neons, and for us really joyful colours, being just the colours that make our hearts sing, the resonance that others feel with the vibration of those colours too, is really magical, and then of course it's an exchange that goes backwards and forwards, or around and around, or through and out and in and up and over, and it's mean.
I've already answered this about 100 times since the mic's been coming around in my mind anyway. But if I could add to what's been shared, the pleasure I experience when I stand and sit amongst the works that are on display, that's rongoā for me. And for me, the intent that I put into the work, the energy that I put into the work, I hope that it does resonate outward. And that energy is positive energy, it's light energy. And then there's other works that we, the energy that comes out of us when we're making the work, or out of myself, might not be that high energy, it might be a lower energy there, which, is a different kaupapa altogether, so it says something else. So I hope, and building again on the ideas of inspiration, I hope that the mahi that I create inspire people to evolve, think about always evolving ourselves, and whether that's aesthetically, culturally, aesthetics involved in that, or whether that's personal repair that we need to do internally, spiritual, all of those things. It's about inspiring ourselves to be the best person that we can possibly be, and if that can resonate with someone else, that's amazing. And I'm sure it does, because that's the feeling that I get in this mahi, in this show, with everyone, and also in the other mahi toi that's been spread across the motu, not only here in Aotearoa, but also throughout the ao. So, yeah, that's some thoughts from me. Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou. Oh, that's actually quite a big question to answer in a really short time. I'll give it a go. So my mahi, I guess, when I think about it, it's about being able to explore who you are and celebrate that. And toiisrongoaa really enabled me to reach out and bring in those people who have done that for me and are constantly going into the deep wānanga, exploring that whole space of who they are and all that interconnectedness, bringing it out and sharing it with the world. So I was privileged to have Waimehi Hotere, Horomona Horo, Jeremy Mayo, Kuraha Painga Te Ua, Troy Kingi and Macy Reka come on board and come on this journey with us. So we had 3 performances that were live online, and they've been uploaded to YouTube, so they're viewable. And we really delved into the different spaces. So there was the celestial realm that we explored, and Te Ao Marama and what that encompassed for us, as well as Papa Tuanuku. And the final piece is totally different to what I imagined it would be. But of course, because it's not me on there, it's all of us. And the journey that we took together in those spaces. So I guess in that it's not a journey of one, it's how we're all interconnected and the healing that comes with that of being connected and sharing our story. And whether it's a sound, whether it's a brushstroke, whether it's a movement, it's all about healing. And it's been a beautiful journey, Margie. It's just been amazing. And then to come and then see all those stories with everybody else, it's been beautiful. And I guess people will take what they want from it. They'll resonate with different things, but it's been really a journey of discovery. And yeah, beautiful to have Mama here too today.
Thank you, Regan. You've actually opened up my next question, and that is this period of making's happened over some time, and originally I know that you put forward an intention to make work for Margie to go to Creative New Zealand and get some funding to enable you to pay to make some work, which, you know, we need to do a lot more of. We need to be able to pay our artists appropriately. So I'm grateful to Creative New Zealand. But what I wanted to ask is more of a process question about the way that you work. And so my question is, when you gave your original intention for the work, did this change over time through the process of making, and why? If it did, why did it change? Why did things shift from your original intention as you made?
I'll kick off. So one of the things about curating a show and being an artist, it's always quite difficult to be in the two spaces, but you've just got to keep threading it in. So as a participating artist with Libby and Leilani, even though we had already developed a concept and the installation at Whenua Ukaipo 2 years ago, we then had to rearrange it and reconfigure it to be presented in Hohauterongo. And then again, in that Hohauterongo, I realised that actually we have never been able to realise the idea. And so with that is the desire to communicate, and the desire to communicate the message that you have to present to an audience or people. And even when I think about it, I don't start with how can I help someone else. A lot of it is that desire to communicate, to make, and then there's all those conflicts I go through when I produce work. Go, oh no, that's not beautiful enough. But that's why I think that we're concerned about making beautiful things too much about, and that stops us. We're just going to make mistakes, so then you can learn and keep learning. So when I get to this particular iteration, for instance, I had to go back to Libby and Leigh and say, hey, do we want to change this up? What other messaging or what other layers do we need to add? And so the only thing that we did do in the end was decide that the development of the road sign. And the road sign, the rākau wānanga, and in there are embedded symbols. They're all sacred geometry, however you want to articulate it, but they are symbols of our tupuna and our atua. So what I'm just saying is that the idea is never fixed, and I suppose when I reflect on the installation, it actually started potentially way back 2018 when Aimee and I did a show called Ārai with Zena Elliott, and I started exploring installation. So so it has changed. Yes, it has changed because you have to challenge yourself. You're going to challenge yourself in whether or not is there anything you need to explore? Is there anything else that we need to do together, particularly with collegials cultivating, I should say. Anyone else want to have a kōrero? Yeah, there we go.
Good question. Love it. I wanted to jump in big time, and then I had to pull myself back. rein it back in. So I know where I'm going after this as well. Now I want to jump to that other place. But one of Margie's sort of signposts was, go and explore, go and test your ideas out. So that was a good signpost for me too, because I knew kind of what I wanted to do. But I did change it, and it was going to be toi ora, but toi ira come up in the exploration of all the possibilities that I could think of. And that was the one that landed, So, and I'd already sent, the message that it was going to be toi ora or something, and then I changed it. And it was all right to do that. It felt appropriate. And then I was showing my son this morning, and he said, look, there's toi tia. And I was going, where? What? Because I was like very linear, and he was going on the diagonal. And then it just like ramped it right up. I was like, whoa, now it belongs to everybody else.
Well, kia ora. You brought up money, so I'll address that as an artist. So last night I rocked up here after another hui, and I had a blue jersey on from the warehouse. And so this morning I had no jersey, and another jersey to turn up with. So I rang up my sister. I said, have you got this, the jersey that you said I left behind? She goes, yeah, I have. And she showed it to me on the video, and it was another blue jersey from the warehouse. $10 jersey. So here it is today. And so on my feet, I've got, Skechers. And those are $100. So they're not $10 shoes, they're $100. Or toiisrongoaa, so I've got some new shoes. I've still got so thank you CNZ for allowing that putia to happen. Materials cost a lot, so it's easy to part with $1,000 upwards, and a roundabout to get the materials to make the work. So very important for funding, especially if your living comes solely from making artwork. So big thank you to those who wrote the funding applications and made that happen for us. It's very important, and it's very much appreciated. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. So I just wanted to talk about process and how important that part as rongoā is. And I think in the last couple of years I was lucky enough to sit with my aunties up at Ruatahuna and do rāranga and all the sort of the hands-on stuff. And so that's why I do remember getting a talking to from Margie or Maree about my are you still in the process stage and how far along are you? So yeah, so that's a big part of the rongoā part for me, is the whole process. And did it change from the start? Yes. And yeah, but it's awesome and it's great to be a part of this. Thanks.
Did it change my process? No. The presentation did. My whakaaro around Tongapuro, hei rongoā, has always been there. I just remembered it about 5 years ago and use it every day from then. In terms of the hine pūtehue, yeah, that changed. I was just going to chop her neck off and then just bind her and then bring it up. And then last week on Saturday we came in and I was like, oh, tino flash tēnei place. I must have to whakaniko and flashen her up. And so we spent some time making her muka to whakakakahu, whakaniko her, and gave her, or cut her hair off, cut her top off, and then used it as the, what's that thing called? The toggle. Kia ora. So yeah, that was my only thing that changed.
Don't talk about the hine pūtehue being an addition. So.
Oh yeah, so that's right. Hine pūtehue was late in the process. We had a kōrero about the hue kōrero, which is a hue that we used to use in hui, to settle nawe raru. So we would take her lid off and then we would do all our kōrero, whakawhiti, pakanga, what have you. And then at the end we would recap her and then take her out into the taiao to release all of the taumaha that just happened in the hui. So Margie thought it would be a cool idea to have that as a part of our exhibition. So last night when Horo started our karakia, I uncapped her. 6 months later, when we whakakapi our whakaaturanga, we will taupoki iaia, we will recap her and then take her down to our awa and release all of the everythings. So not just our taumaha, not just our raru e nawe, but our hia, our wants and our dreams. Anything, you don't need to write it down on a paper and put it inside her. You can just use it, use her to take away anything from here, hearts, wairua, anything.
What was the question?
About your process, did it change from the original intention?
Yeah, I had heaps of ideas. I probably spent the first month just exploring and then I got a bit lost. And I thought to myself, what are my priorities? So first time I've shown in Waikato, so I thought I'd better bring my A game. And then I thought about rongoā and I thought about Hirini Melbourne and the legacy of Tongapuro. And then we've been doing some work with Niwa, and they've been tracking the ocean and the way the ocean's breathing. So the ocean's breathing slower. So the ocean produces about 80% of our oxygen. So then I thought, hey, that's a cool idea, and bring the breath in. And then I was just reflecting on some kōrero that my dad used to talk about when tāne ascended up to ngā rangi tūhaha. I always used to say to the old man, where's this sacred vine that he climbed or whatever? And the old man would teach me that it was through meditation. So the works were about all those things. And once I got the kaupapa, I think I'm set. So to do a work that I suppose I wanted to make paintings that breathe slowly, that are really open, like we talked about, they're real slow works. And it's also something we teach in spearfishing. We teach the same breathing meditation technique for accessing rangi tūhaha and spearfishing. So we can take you from diving in the ocean for 20 seconds to sitting in the ocean for 3 minutes. So it's all about breath, and I think for me, my process is always about getting a kaupapa first and then executing it, and yeah, that's my process.
Our process of, especially with the karetao, was one that of a discovery for us, and to research. We had to have a look at the work of Whare Tāpere, and with Horo there, and and have a look at that example. And then we also had to go back to Lissy's auntie to see if she had any kōrero about karetao. And it also gave us a chance to explore that our people had fun, and and how they also used puppetry in that way. So it was very a new thing for us to be able to go to. Kia ora.
Kia ora. And I think too, just because I don't think we had mentioned the karetao in the initial that came about after we had the pūnanga pōhewa, which we felt really fitted in with the kaupapa of rongoā and healing, and then the karetao, and our work is intentionally joyful, but it's real hard work, and it's really serious work as well as it being joyful. And so, we love the idea of imagining our people with karetao, and because we have to remind ourselves to have fun, in our processes and in our making, because it's so intense and laborious, and and we have to deal with our own trauma and our own experiences, and all of that is what comes out or is imbued into every loop that we make. And much like with the breathing, it's a real meditative space you go into when you're deep in that mahi. So it always changes too, just because your thinking changes, your feelings change, your understandings change and grow and evolve. So it's always just a constant evolving, changing, understanding. Kia ora.
My initial ideas for the show was more kind of towards whakairo rākau, and that's part of the background that I work in, or material process that I work in. And I've spent a long time working in bronze casting, so I specialise in that. So when we started to get further into what this exhibition could be and what the ideas could, form into what we have now, things started to shift. And to pick up on what Hiria acknowledged, the funding really helped open up that box. And it shifted the thinking towards what we see today, and that gave me an opportunity to kind of add in that thread of the large scale sculptures that we're working on, and bring those elements into this internal space, so that we have a closer connection with the object, but more so with the idea of the work, the kaupapa of the work, and so. That really strengthened this process that we're working in at the moment as a remote process. And we've spent many years refining our skill set and our creative thinking with the hands-on. And then I spent many years taking that hat off and putting the artisan hat on and making other people's works for them. So in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, I'm in the space where I can create my works through design, and then connect with people who are out there, mātanga, who are out there in those different industries that we can collaborate with. And so it was added a completely different element to my process. Last night was the first time I saw my works in the opening, and so fully, on stage. So outside of the fabrication process in the workshops to the storage room here, I'd never seen the works come alive. So this whole kind of process and the journey of this making is something new, fresh. It's exciting, but it's something to get used to as well, because other people have put their energy, their mahi. The amazing team at Longveld, and I've got to give them props, led by Jamal, and 3 of the team were here last night, Pete, Oscar and Tobias. Their hands actually made the work for me. So it's a different process, one that I really enjoy, and one that opens things up further for us to really expand what our potential is. And again, circling back to this idea of evolving, it's evolving our practice in a different way.
Did things change? Well, the first day that we came in and Maree showed me the space, went up there and I went, wow, there's a high ceiling. I was like, yeah, that would be so cool. You can get height. So I was like, yes. Maree, can I please have that wall? And that back wall for me represents or symbolises the back wall of the whare. And that's the whare where, especially in Ngāpuhi, you go in and you stand at the back wall of the whare because that's where the tūpuna lie. And then up the top is ngā taonga tuku iho, but rangi connects to papa. And so to have that space is really special for me, and the whole rest of the journey unfolded from having that beautiful space. So we were fortunate also to get CNZ funding to explore the digital realm and performance and live performance painting with music and taonga pūoro. So we were able to explore in that realm while creating the piece, and then it's all just come together. But at every stage, you just really had to trust the process and put so much trust in the people that you were working with. And we so trusted each other because we knew everybody could come up with the good. So at every part, it actually morphed and changed and developed, so there was no set understanding of how it would turn out. And even the artists didn't know what the heck I was doing. Sometimes I was like, what am I doing? In the middle of a live performance online out to everybody. And then when I see it up, like Eugene, it just took on a whole nother life. And so after our 3 performances, I painted different sections. I had to paint it all together to join it up. So I was in a garage, underground garage with no cars in it, and rolled it out and was painting. And I was doing all this unconventional stuff. And I was like, this is going into an exhibition at the museum. I wonder if it's going to get accepted, because I was totally disregarding all standard conventions of how an artwork should be made. And to see it up and accepted is really exciting. So there's finger painting in there, if you don't realise. There's paint dripping off the canvas. It's not sitting flat to the wall. There's 3 different styles of painting there. All sorts of things that, there's neon lights. So it was just really pushing those parameters of what you expect to see in an artwork. And, it's there, but let's just push it a bit further and see what happens, see what the reaction is. So it's been fun, yeah.
And can I add something to that? I suppose, I think that it's important just to say that you have to make keep room for things to evolve. And I think you saw that too, Maree, to Thursday. We're making the last adjustments. We've shifted someone here to go over here and this one over here. And I think it's a very Māori way of practice where you see you see something that needs to be done, so you shift over, make room, like how we try to fit all of us on 2 tables last night. But you got to make room for things to evolve, and and I think that when it comes to this particular show, what you see now is not what it's going to be next week. It's going to change again. Why? Because we're going to keep adding and keep activating it in different areas. So just from a curatorial perspective, it's always open to shift and change, yeah.
Kia ora.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much. On that note, Margie, since I should be shifting and reacting and changing, I'm going to stop asking questions.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask the audience if they might have a question, and we're coming towards time. So I wanted to shift the power from me being in the question seat and say to our wonderful audience, some of you might have some questions for any one of the panel here. So please feel free to ask. Yeah.
Be afraid. You need the mic, don't you?
I don't really.
There we go. You can sing a song if you want.
Oh, kia ora. So I'm an art teacher at Hamilton Junior High, and the trouble that I have with my students is that they start doing an artwork and then they screw it up. So I think you may have touched on it. What advice can you give me to encourage them to embrace their style?
I'll pass it over. Yeah. Leilani's got I shall be the conduit.
Thank you.
There's actually other teachers on the panel too, but I always start off with, you never throw anything away. And you get them a folder, and you just put it in the folder, because once you've got, and we do blind contour drawings as well. If you do a series of 5 of those, so blind contour is when the student will look at the object but not the paper and draw. So it's also about teaching young people that, when you do blind contour drawing first, because usually you go, who's the best drawers in the room? And kids, and the other ones will be like, oh, I'm not as good. So you do blind contour to equalise the power, because if once you do blind contour, everyone's work is kind of huckery, because it's, and then you start to talk about the exercise. So just like sports kids will go to practice, you have to practice your art and your technique. But once you do like an exercise like blind contour, and you have like 6 or 7, you can see right away what you started on and where you went in a short amount. But yeah, I just tell everyone to keep everything. But the thing is, with art, you can't be, and it's the hard thing when you're teaching, I might hand this over to Regan, is that you can't force that creative spark. So when a kid's like, I'm not feeling it, you can't force it. So you have to start something else. Or I don't know, maybe Regan's got a...
And also like encouraging them that it's a journey. You have a starting place. Don't be afraid of the starting place and where it goes to. It might need to go on a few to get to where, it wants to go.
And it's not a task. Making art.
Yeah, it's about the process. Firstly, I would get rid of your pencils and your pens, and I would get some paint in front of them and get some sticks and some cotton buds and just play. Because it's about playing and expressing and mark making. It's the foundation of creativity, where it doesn't have to look like something. So we're caught up with this, it has to look like that. And in order for it to look like that, you have to go through a whole process of it looking not so good. Yeah, and not like that. And actually the process is so important. If you don't get there, it doesn't really matter because the process is the main important part of it. And that's where you learn all those skills. The end point is when you figure out how to refine a work.
I was going to also say, like, because a lot of the kids say they'll go, it doesn't look like that. And I'll say, well, if I wanted it to look like something, I'd just hand over the phone and take a photo. The celebration is in the fact of those little wiggly bits. Or I love when students paint portraits of me because there'll be like big lips and eyes and dreads. And it totally doesn't look like me, but they capture the ihi, the essence, and I always keep all my portraits because I think they're way better than like a photo of me anytime.
In terms of, how it has to look like something, and we always have to use, as a teacher, artist models. So getting many, like a wide variety of different artist models so that they do have that whatever eye hanging out the side or and there's so many these days and it's just giving the students that exposure to all the different ones.
As a representational figurative artist, I'd say that tell them that it's okay to copy. It's okay to look at references, and if they want the muscle man in the book or the gangster fella, teach them though. Don't be afraid of that. Try and get that narrative out of there because at the end of the day, it's still observation, whatever form. Yeah.
Kia ora tātou, ko moana tēnei hu uri o ngā puhi, nō reira ko taku nei pātai. Did the fact that this mahi is sitting in an institution in the museum shape what you made and the process that led you to come to your final creation? Because I see that all of you are very involved in your iwi and very involved with the taiao and mātauranga Māori. So I was wondering how this wharetonga and this institution shaped your mahi.
I'm going to hand it. I'm the conduit.
Tēnā koe, thank you for giving me a break here, Hoa. I suppose that is a very awesome pātai. I think with this particular concept and show, what I wanted to do from the get-go was to challenge the museum. So I used it as a vehicle to try and create space and change within the processes and the systems. So, i.e., in most museums or institutions, they won't let you have dirt in the gallery. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that the institution doesn't confine the idea. And so when I say the idea is about activating, so what you see as an insight, but what we're going to do is a whole nother series of mahi, and that's what I mean, it's always going to be changing. The other part to it was, the reason why I asked Maria Huata to be able to deliver the reo, I didn't want a straight transliteration because we all know our reo is much more richer, much more layered. And in fact, if we think about it, the only way we respond, the only way that we know how to communicate is through response. So what she did was able to create labels that weren't a straight transliteration. It was a response. And I think though I am very grateful, I am very grateful for Waikato Museum and Maree for being able to advocate for the mahi that we need in here. Even things like having water present in the gallery. You think, water, what's that going to do? Who's going to burn? Those types of things. But you've got to challenge the institutions. And as much as I know that the show is seen as an exhibition gallery space, the message, this is what I keep saying, the message is not new. We're doing this in the community, might be new for the institution. So there's a lot of layers and strategies at hand when you bring a show like this together. Yeah. So who wants to go? Yeah.
I'm getting warmed up now. So, yeah, I don't see this whare as an institution myself. My grandparents' toiisrongoaa is down in the archive collections room being looked after. So I see this place as home to me, and I've been here as a little girl going to exhibitions with my grandparents, and being shown. So, I don't live far from here, probably an hour or so away, and so I have those connections back here. So we were just talking this morning, my partner and I, and saying, it's good to be home. And I said, that's right. And even my auntie was here last night at the opening, and she curated Te Karo Hirohinga, an exhibition years ago, Eugene was in, and she said herself, going in to the elevator to come up to the top floor was the last time she was in there was to carry out help to curate that show. So yeah, it's home. Kia ora.
Oh, you want a song?
I want to sing a song. I love a challenge. Especially in Te Ao Māori, the Māori space, especially as a taonga pūoro practitioner, when people think that only men should play taonga pūoro. I love it. I also love pushing the boundaries. Some really amazing people taught me how to know tikanga and then how to move through and around it. So when our kaumātua wasn't able to come to our opening in Apo, and Regan's husband, Horomona Horo, and I were given the task to where tēnei kaupapa. We used that as a challenge. We stepped up, and we had the reo wahine and the reo tāne to tuku the karakia. Never ever done that before in my life, but with the tikanga and the makeup and my whakapapa and my toto, I knew within myself it was good. So in terms of an institution, but the wero was even greater. Like, give it. I'm a breastfeeding mama as well, and I just love breastfeeding in public. That's just me. I'm like, come on, I want to have a fight. No. Tell me this is wrong. Yeah? Tell me this is wrong. Yeah. I play taonga pūoro. Tell me this is wrong, because I want to tell you, I want to educate you. Tēnā tātou.
Well, kia ora, thank you for that, Patai. The exhibition in 1993, personally, that was the first main stage that I had the opportunity to exhibit here as an art student. Actually, I was in my second to last year of study, and to have that piece of work sitting alongside all of the other artists, and some of them aren't with us anymore. They've passed on. So for us to have the opportunity to come back into this space here, into our whare, and present the kaupapa of Honey and Puna alongside Te Winika, alongside our awa, it's a privilege, really. And I know there's, as institutions, they do have their political kind of stuff that goes on in the background. I think, for our part is to hold the space open and hold the space, and then help blow it open a little bit further to enrich this space with its cultural essence. So it's a privilege to be back here and have my mahi sit alongside our tupuna and our awa, and inside this whare alongside close friends and family. Kia ora.
As a video installation artist, I don't get much opportunities to show on a grand scale. We're one of the when I used to teach, I used to say, if you want to make money out of the arts, don't choose what I do. Because it really is kind of big dream stuff. So when we came into the museum, I was like, the high ceiling, I want the high ceiling. And I was thinking, I'm going to project all this and that. This is the largest video projection work that I've done with Margie. But, you know, I had grand ideas of, what about projecting on the awa? What about projecting on the, but the constraints are economic, political. So I'm just honoured to be a part of it. But again, working and editing on a computer and showing it on a TV monitor is totally different to the original of being immersed in it, because one of the kaupapa in our work is when you interact with the work, your shadow will cast, or your body will cast shadows, and that shadow is actually a part of the activation, because one side of us is in the light, one side of us is in the dark, but to acknowledge those parts. And also, as a video artist, I'm trying to capture the intangible. So as the projection is hitting the body, the wall, it's actually trying to bring into light all the stuff that we take for granted or can't see. And I can't kind of do that because I'm limited by technology. I can't kind of do that outside or unless I have tools. So that's probably the biggest kind of hindrance of my practice is technology and money. So thank you, Waikato.
I just probably, like Regan said, that my kaupapa was there and I had to figure out how to fulfill it or finish it. And if it got here and Maree didn't like it, well, then it wouldn't be shown. So I didn't change what I wanted to do for the institution.
Ka pai. I took full advantage because it was an institution and it was fully resourced and we had some putia. So hence it wasn't just some uku on the wall or standing. I had tapped other people to help to kind of extend the range, so the audio was part of that. So that's bringing my whānau along with me. So there's my cousin down in Wellington who did the sound, and then my son who was involved in the sound with karakia as well. So just, that's another nod to manos too, is like bring your whānau with you. Yeah, and reach out so that they come with you. You're not there on your own. Even though nobody came with me except for my whanaunga up there last night. The other fellas couldn't make it, but that was part of the opportunity being here and taking my hat off to all the team who constructed it too, because like you, I didn't see my work until I saw it last night and its fullness. So there was quite, it took a little while to kind of, get to know it, and it's still, it's still different too.
How awesome it is. Well, kia ora. I know that there are so many questions in this audience, and I know that you're all warmed up now, but we're sort of out of time. We've got a program that keeps going. So I would just like to ask our audience if we can just give our appreciation to this fabulous group.